Welcome to the governing body meeting of February 17th, 2026. Glad to see everybody here. We will open the meeting by turning things over to Councilman Banks, who will lead the invocation. Please stand if you are able.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to introduce you to Pastor Gregory D. Durant Sr. He was born and raised in Wichita, Kansas, and has been in the pastoral ministry for 45 years. He spent 39 of those years pastoring here in Topeka between two churches, the New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church for 11 years, and currently the founding pastor of True Light Church of Ministries for 27 years. Pastor Durant meets once a month with local pastors to specifically pray for Topeka and its governing bodies. He has been called to meet with city officials, police chiefs, addressing issues that confronts Topeka, including racial tension, crime, and violence in Topeka. Married to his wife, junior high school girlfriend, Linda, for 51 years, this union has produced 3 children, Tanisha, Greg Jr., deceased, and Manuel's 6 grandchildren and 13 great-grandchildren. They have helped increase the population of Topeka. I am proud to introduce you to my friend, Pastor Gregory Durant.
Shall we pray? Father, it is within your name we come tonight. And first of all, we thank you that you've allowed us all to be gathered in the heart of this country that will make decisions that will affect not just Topeka, but the entire country. We pray, Father, now that as this governing body meets, that you would give them wisdom, give them knowledge, give them courage. In fact, Father, I pray that you would allow them to become instruments in your hand that will carry out the will, your will, that actually your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We pray, Father, that every decision that is made will be beneficial to the citizens of this community, that will make Topeka truly be a model city for even the world in which we live. We pray, Father, that these men and women that have been appointed as this governing body will be able to carry out that will unselfishly, but all with the spirit of humility. We pray, Father, blessings upon each one of them, their homes, and all of their personal endeavors. We just pray, Father, that this will be a city that will be reminiscent of a city that was once in chaos and confusion in the Bible. But because your spirit moved and revival broke out, it brought joy to that city. Let joy come to Topeka. Let joy come to Topeka in such a way that men, women, boys, and girls will desire to be a part of this community, because it becomes an example of a truly model community. So let your spirit dwell within these chambers tonight, that everything will be done according to your will and according to your way. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will begin this evening's meeting by swearing in my councilman and yours now, our newest individual, Mr. Murray McGee. So, the judge here somewhere.
He's over there on the phone.
Oh, had to make his entrance. There we go. Mr. McGee, you can come up here. If anyone else wants to come up here with you, that will also be okay.
Whenever you're ready. Your right hand, please. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States of
of
America
the United States of America
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of
of the
Kansas,
State of Kansas,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of City Council Member
the duties of City Council Member
for District Number 8
for District Number 8
of the City of Topeka.
of the City of Topeka.
So help me God.
So help me God.
You may lower your hand. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm gonna move that real quick.
You don't have to sit up here, but if you want to talk and vote. Did you already get your training on how the little device works? Was that top of the list? All right, with that, I will ask the clerk to read roll.
Mayor Duncan.
Here.
Oh, gosh. Council members Hiller.
Here.
Valdivia Acala. Ortiz. Here. Banks.
Here?
Kell.
Here.
Miller. Bradbury.
Here.
McGee.
Here.
And Hofer.
Here.
All right, we have 8 present.
All right. All right, we do have a certificate of recognition this evening. Chuck Engel, come on down. So this is one of those examples of when community members decide they can make a difference and want to make a difference and are going to make a difference. They get out there and you know what they did? They actually made a difference. And so that's why we want to make sure that that's get recognized as often as possible, because while we as a city can do wonderful things, we cannot do it unless the citizens of this city participate and care about this community. So with that, we have a certificate of recognition this evening for America in Bloom. America in Bloom, AIB, a national nonprofit organization dedicated to fostering vibrant, sustainable communities, conducted an in-depth evaluation of Topeka this past June. AIB's mission centers on strengthening communities through volunteerism and education, with a focus on flowers, plants, trees, heritage, and environmental and lifestyle enhancement. This opportunity was made possible through the support of the Bring Back the Boulevard group, which generously covered all expenses for the AIB evaluation team. Over the course of 2 days, the team toured the city, met with numerous community members, and assessed Topeka across several key areas: community vitality, floral impact, landscaped areas, urban forestry, environmental initiatives, celebrating heritage, and overall impressions. As a result of this comprehensive review, AIB honored the City of Topeka with an Outstanding Achievement Award in Community Vitality, recognizing the city's strong commitment to fostering an engaged, resilient, and thriving community. AIB has also provided the city with a detailed evaluation report outlining recommendations and opportunities for continued improvement in each category, guidance that will support ongoing efforts to enhance Topeka's beauty, sustainability, and quality of life. In witness whereof, I do hereby affix my official signature and the official seal of the City of Topeka, Kansas, on this 17th day of February 2026. I want to thank all of the members of this city who do this hard work and contribute to these projects. I want to thank all the community members who have contributed to this. And Chuck is here to say a few words and sort of represented all, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
The evaluation report that was conducted that Mayor Duncan mentioned concluded that Topeka is a very welcoming community that offers its citizens a plethora of opportunities to lead a quality of life that it surpasses most other areas of the country. So congratulations, and here's an award from AIB noting the vitality of the city. So.
Chuck, do you want to tell people who you are? You want to tell people who you are?
I'm Chuck Engel. I've lived in Topeka for 54 years, and I practice law. I'm currently the chair of Bring Back the Boulevard.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you.
Yeah. He's going to want a picture here. You get that. I will take that. There we go. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's break this. Try not to kick it over later. All right. With that, next on the agenda, we have a presentation on the Topeka Land Bank 2025 Annual Report. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Quinn Cole, Senior Management Analyst, will lead us through this item.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the governing body. I'm Quinn Cole, Senior Management Analyst for Planning and Development, and I'm going to be delivering the Land Bank 2025 Annual Report. So what we're going to cover in this, you all should have received a written version of this report in your email prior to January 31st, but this is just going to be a presentation form of it. I'm going to give you a quick background on the land bank, then we're going to go over our cash receipts and disbursements. Oh. Yeah, I think so. Oh, thank you. Then we'll go over our cash receipts and disbursements, all property transfers for the year, and then a snapshot of our property inventory. So the purpose of the land bank is to serve the public purpose of providing for the orderly, planned, and reutilization of abandoned, tax foreclosed, or otherwise underutilized residential properties. So we're really looking to transform and create residential properties out of some of our underperforming properties in the city. Going right into cash receipts, we had one sale of land that you'll hear more about in a little bit. We got $150 off that transfer. And then for our disbursements, our first line item is property maintenance, where we spent $1,369.50. The scope of our services on our vacant properties includes cleanup of illegal dumping and mowing. Secondly, we have special assessments. 3 of our properties are located within Lawrence Bay, and the land bank is going to be responsible for paying off the special assessments until that is transferred. And that brings our total expenditures for the year to just under $8,000 with $7,938. So for property transfers, the first transfer was on August 19th. The land bank was returned a parcel located at 1326 Fillmore. That parcel had been sold previously in 2024, but the development agreement was terminated because the development could not go on as planned. Secondly, on December 18th, we sold the property located at 1332 Southeast 18th Terrace to Cent. The development agreement is going to require that permits for the proposed housing be pulled by December of 2028 and that the development is completed by December of 2030. This is just a list of all of the properties currently in the land bank inventory, along with their appraised values. And then here you can see on the map where those properties are located. Most of them are within central Topeka, and then you can see our 3 located in Lawrence Bay down in the left corner. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Are there questions from the governing body? Just so everyone knows, at some point, probably this summer, we'll do a little more in-depth presentation on where the land bank is. We may come back and ask for some tweaks. This presentation is required under the ordinance that we pass to give every year, so that's why it's a little shorter and a little different than what you may see later in the year. So, Councilmember Hiller.
Well, just to kind of put a face on this, could Could we go back to the list of properties that you have right now, and could you briefly tell us how you got them and whether there's been interest, just kind of?
Yeah,
Put a face
so
on
each of these properties were acquired by the land bank through intergovernmental transfer. So the city of Topeka previously owned each one of these properties, with the exception of the Lawrence Bay properties. There has been growing interest as time goes on. We're seeing more, but it's still a brand-new program, so we're trying to get the word out there. And then for our 3 properties located in Lawrence Bay, the governing body took action to purchase those from the tax sale in September of 2024, and then the land bank took those on as part of their inventory as well.
So for the ones that the city already owned, were those demolitions or right away?
There was a variety. Some were acquired a long time ago, but they were all identified as surplus residential properties and given the green light.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, we've been working to go, Quinn's been working hard to go through, with staff, to go through all the properties the city has acquired over the years for whatever reasons and see why we own them and if there's a way to let the land bank, get them off of our mowing list and onto somebody where could actually put a home there and utilize it, so. Councilmember Banks.
Okay, just for the sake of letting the public know, who can purchase and how?
Yeah, so anyone can purchase from the land bank. What we are looking for is a commitment to getting some sort of housing on the property within a reasonable time frame. So if you have the ability to either work with a builder, construct a home yourself, then you can apply for one of our vacant properties currently in the inventory by going to our webpage and filling out a land bank purchase application. In the future, if we are to acquire properties with structures, anyone with the ability to rehab that structure is also welcome to apply.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Any other questions or comments for Quinn? All right, thank you, Quinn. We appreciate it. All right. We will move on to the item 4, the consent agenda. City Clerk.
A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert M. Perez, allowing and approving city expenditures for the period December 27, 2025 to January 30th, 2026, and enumerating said expenditures therein. B are the minutes of the February 10th, 2026 governing body meeting, and there are no applications.
I have a motion from Brett Kell to approve, a second from Councilmember Ortiz. I'll ask the clerk to take roll, or to take a vote. We already took roll, we're all here.
And Councilmember Bradbury, what was your vote?
Yes.
Yes. And Councilmember Hiller? Okay. All right, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
All right. We will move on to the action items. 5A, clerk will read.
A is the public hearing regarding the petition by JJH Properties LLC to vacate the public alley between 2nd Street, 3rd Street, Kansas Avenue, and Jackson Street. We also have an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert M. Perez relating to the vacation of the public alley lying between 2nd Street on the north, 3rd Street on the south, Kansas Avenue on the east, and Jackson Street on the west, City of Topeka, Shawnee County, Kansas.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Dan Warner, our Planning and Development Director, will lead us through this item.
Hello, Dan.
Good evening, Mayor, governing body. So this first item from planning, JJH Properties wishes to vacate the alley located south of Southwest 2nd between South Kansas Avenue and Jackson. Just some information here. The applicant owns both sides of the alley. There are no other owners impacted by this alley vacation. The applicant will retain a public easement in place of the vacated right-of-way. All city and county agencies had the opportunity to review the proposed vacation and express no objection. City Utilities Department and Public Works Department did not object to the proposed vacation, provided a utility easement is retained, and that's what's happening in this case. Staff recommends the governing body hold a public hearing on this vacation and recommends approval of the vacation. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, we do need to have a public hearing, so I think we will start with that, and then we can discuss as a governing body. So at this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone present who would like to speak to this matter. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this matter? And I'm going to say it one more time, just in case you didn't hear me, as I'm supposed to. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak to this matter before I close this public hearing? All right. If not, then this public hearing is now closed. I will now open it up to the governing body for any comments or questions for Dan or anyone else. No? Seeing none, I would also accept a motion. All right, we have a motion to approve from Councilmember Hiller and a second from Councilmember Bradbury. If there's nothing else, then I will ask the clerk to take a vote.
And Councilmember McGee, what is your vote?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
All right. We will now move on to action item 5B. The clerk will read.
B is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert M. Perez concerning home occupations, amending Section 18.21035 of the Topeka Municipal Code and repealing original section.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Dan Warner, Planning and Development Director, will lead us to this item.
Thank you, City Manager. So, Mayor, governing body, the city's home occupation ordinance dates to 2010. That's the last time it was updated. Home-based businesses and the nature of work have evolved over the last 15 years. Changing technology has facilitated the growth in home offices and e-commerce. So the proposed changes specify that if a business has no employees or customers coming to the home, then a home occupation permit is not required. So just specifying again, just so it's clear, so no employees are coming to the house, no customers are coming to the house, then a home occupation permit is not required. Those home occupations are essentially exempt. The changes also make note of in-home daycare, for instance, as a use that's not a home occupation and is regulated elsewhere in the zoning code, so just providing a little more information in the ordinance. The Planning Commission recommended approval. Staff recommends approval as well. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
So I'll give a little background on this, tell you a little story. So sometimes when we pass things, we get unintended consequences, and this is a cleanup to an unintended consequence. Last year during the legislature, there was a bill relating to home-based businesses. And one of the examples given by legislators was, well, even Topeka requires you to get a permit if you want to sell things on eBay. Technically, letter of the law, that might be accurate. We have never done that, never asked people to do that, and even we all agreed that was silly, which is why we've never done it. But it was an opportunity to say, you know what, that's definitely not what we intended, as one example. And so we started having discussions about how can we fix that and clean that up to make it more clear, because to Dan's point, times have changed, the internet has changed things, and so that's where this came from. We discussed it originally. I think did we talk about it in policy? No, we didn't, but we had to send it to planning, so they debated it and discussed it, said makes sense to us, and that's how it got here to us. So that's where this is coming from, trying to fix an oops from many years ago when we passed the original law. So, any questions or comments? Councilmember Hiller.
Just a quick clarification, since people are probably watching and listening. Some time ago, we passed an ordinance about, probably before my time even, but regulating signs for home-based businesses. Now, that's not changed, so basically you can't put a sign out. That just has to be something you're doing inside your home.
That's correct. We did not get into the meat of the home occupation ordinance with this update. It's possible we
Right.
will come back and kind of refresh the whole thing, in the future, but no, that is accurate. Signage is not permitted.
I just wanted to refresh that while we were talking about it. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Kell and a second from Councilmember Bradbury. Any other comments before we take a vote? All right, with that, I'll ask the clerk to take a vote.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
Thank you, Dan. All right, we'll move on to action item 5C. I will ask the clerk to read, please.
C is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert M. Perez concerning use standards and special use standards for two-family and multiple-family residential uses and dwellings on the main floor, amending sections 1860-020 and 18-225-010 of the Topeka Municipal Code and repealing original sections.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Dan Warner, Planning and Development Director, will lead us through this item.
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor, governing body, this is another housing-related text amendment to the zoning code. This amendment concerns multifamily residential uses in C, D, and X districts. The primary change that we're talking about here is allowing dwelling units on the main floor in C3, C4, D1, X1, and X3. Really need to mention that multifamily is permitted in all of those zoning districts. The issue here is that dwelling units on the ground floor is not. So if somebody wants to build a multifamily development in one of those zoning districts, they have to have a non-residential use on the main floor, which is essentially a mixed-use building. We don't think that's particularly necessary anymore, and since multifamily is already allowed, why not allow multifamily with dwelling units on the main floor? So the specific change in D1 and X3 applies sort of everywhere where there's D1 and X3, except for Kansas Avenue between 6th and 10th, and and on North Kansas Avenue between Norris and Gordon. The issue there, those two areas of, that area of downtown and North Topeka are the primary mixed-use kind of cores of downtown and Noto. So this is really where we're trying to emphasize mixed use and emphasize the street activity that comes along with that and the action that kind of comes along with that. But what we're saying is once you get outside of those core blocks, it's okay to do a dwelling unit on the main floor. So that is the change specifically in D1 and X1. And one final point here is, so this is new also, so this special use requirements have never had a section with a conditional use permit being a possibility where if you can't meet the special use requirements, you can get a conditional use permit if these, possibly get approved through additional conditional use permit if these amendments are approved. So Planning Commission recommended approval, staff does as well. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
Dan, you want to remind everyone briefly what a conditional use permit is?
You bet. So conditional use permit is similar to a rezoning, but where a rezoning completely changes all of the uses on a property, a conditional use permit only essentially approves one use on that property, additional use on that property. And it's the same process as a rezoning. So staff, we have a policy that requires after the application is submitted a neighborhood information meeting where we notify neighbors and the developer runs that meeting. We have legal notice requirements that we satisfy, and then the public hearing is at the Planning Commission, and the governing body has the ultimate authority of approving or not approving a conditional use permit.
Any questions for Dan? Councilmember Hiller.
Thank you again. I represent downtown, and not long ago, the question came up, well, what if you do have just the space is just right, or can't seem to lease the building at all and want to go ahead and do all residential in one of those Kansas Avenue blocks? Is that where somebody could go after a conditional use permit for that one-time exception?
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
I see no other questions or comments. Do we have any motions of any kind? A motion to approve from Councilmember Banks and a second from Councilmember Hiller. If there's no other comments, then I will ask the clerk to take a vote.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. All right, we'll move on to action item 5D. Clerk, please read.
D is a resolution introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert M. Perez, setting the public hearing to consider the advisability of establishing a community improvement district at 17th and Topeka Boulevard for the Hotel Topeka property pursuant to KSA 126A26.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Braxton Copley, Deputy City Manager, will lead us through this item.
Thank you, City Manager. Just give Deanna a second to pull up the PowerPoint. Thank you, Dan. So you'll remember last week at the TDC meeting, the TDC approved submission of the petition for a CID for Hotel Topeka. So this is the second step in that process. Tonight, we are simply going to be setting the public hearing for March 10th for consideration of the CID. The CID proposed boundaries is the entire lot occupied by Hotel Topeka, including the parking lot and the real property. The area outlined in red on the PowerPoint presentation shows the CID boundary. We were intentional about this because if we were to have an event at the hotel and we were to have food trucks out in the parking lot, this would allow us to collect that point of purchase retail sales tax because it falls within the district. This is just a close-up view of the district. That's approximately 6 acres. The scope of the project for Hotel Topeka is discussed by Roy Arnold, CEO of Endeavor Group, includes building envelope, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, roofs, windows, civil site improvements, ADA accessibility, and just general overall rehab of the property. Total project cost is estimated at approximately $6 million. This will be on a pay-as-you-go, so the CID maximum amount under Kansas law is 2%. Maximum period of time is 22 years. We estimate the revenue just from the Hotel Topeka, so this would be food and beverage and rooms in Hotel Topeka, would be approximately $3.2 million over that 22-year period. And again, this resolution tonight is only to set the public hearing, and that will be for March 10th, 2026. It's to meet the statutory requirements in terms of the number of times that notice has to be published. So with that, gladly answer any questions that you all have.
Are there any questions for staff? Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does this include the Manor building? Did that include the Manor building?
Councilmember Ortiz, that's an excellent question. This CID in our proposal is only to capture the CID within Hotel Topeka, the boundaries of that property, and does not include any of the Manor. The reason for that is the county has already established a 2-cent CID on the entire Expo property, and I intentionally use the word Expo because it was platted as the Expo Center plat. And so all of that property in the Expo Center, except for Hotel Topeka, was included in the CID that the county commission established.
Thank you. This is in my district, and I'm going to receive calls. So I want them to know that this does not include the Chesney neighborhood, the Clinton Heights Steel neighborhood, Central Highland Park. I don't represent them. But further on, this only includes the property that was outlined in red. If you could put that back up for me. Okay, which is around what I call the Expo, but Stormont Vale Event Center.
So this is just Hotel Topeka. That area outlined in red is just Hotel Topeka, including the little roundabout that we have right in front of it and the parking lots and the little grassy patch that we have on the north side. Does not include any of the Expo Center.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hiller.
Just to clarify, though, for the neighborhoods and for viewers, between what the county is doing a 2% SID on and what the Hotel Topeka would be, then 100% of the Expo Center grounds from Topeka Boulevard to Western and from 17th to 21st Street, anything that's going on that property is going to be under that 2% SID, correct?
Yes, ma'am. But it'll be either under the counties or the cities.
Payable either to the city or the county, but all of it will, so any events there are going to have that surcharge. But you're right, I mean, it doesn't spill over. Thanks.
Councilmember Hofer, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor Hofer.
Whatever.
Oh, wait a minute.
Braxton, I was just curious, does the CID area match the legal description of what Endeavor is buying?
Yes, we pulled the legal description right off of the deed for the property.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Great question, and we've had the discussion with Roy, and he is completely comfortable with the city putting the CID, the 2% CID on the property. He knows he's going to take it subject to that.
All right, don't see any other comments or questions. So with that, we have a motion to approve from Councilmember Banks, a second from myself. If there's no other comments, then I will ask the clerk to take the vote.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
We'll move on to action item 5E. If the clerk would please read.
E is a resolution introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez recommending approval to authorize the disposal of real property located at 1335 Southeast 21st Street as described in Exhibit A for the land bank consideration.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Quinn Cole, Senior Management Analyst, will lead us through this item.
Hello again, members of the governing body. I'm here to request the approval to authorize the disposal of city-owned real property located at 1335 Southeast 21st Street to be considered by the land bank. About this property, it is located on the corner of Southeast 21st and Southeast Michigan, and it's a single-family residentially zoned property appraised at $1,520. And this is in our Central Highland Park neighborhood. Some special considerations: upon the conveyance of this property, we are going to reserve additional right-of-way so that the right-of-way on 21st Street matches the lines, the property lines of the neighboring properties. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
All right. Any questions? Councilmember Ortiz.
Ms. Quinn, take me there. I'm at 21st and Adams, so I want to go down 2 streets, is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Is that the property next to the creek there?
I don't know how close it is to the creek, but it is in a residential area.
Sort of walk east of Washington Tech.
Is this my parking lot that I've been talking about? This isn't.
No, this is not the parking lot.
This
No,
isn't the
that's on
parking
the
lot.
other side.
That's on the other side?
Yeah. This is a wooded area.
Okay, so this is on the south side?
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
Yep.
Quinn, you gotta take me there sometimes.
You got it.
Been here for a while, but I can't remember.
We have a motion to approve from Councilmember Ortiz, a second from Councilmember Bradbury. There's no other comments or questions? All right, I will ask the clerk to take a vote.
We have 8 yes, the motion carries.
All right, thank you, Quinn.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Ortiz.
Ms. Quinn, can you go to that parking lot at 21st and Adams? When are we gonna get rid of that? Because it's just sitting there. No, I
don't. We don't know. We'll get you a report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's
The status of
just
that.
there. We maintain it and it's just
Yeah.
there. We
Yep.
could put 2, 3 houses there.
I think someone was interested, so nothing happened, and now we'll get you some information on that. I don't know the status, but I know somebody can find it for you.
I mean, we could put 3 houses, I can get maybe 3, 4 more votes out of there, I don't know.
All right, we'll move on to item 6, non-action items. City Clerk.
A is a discussion of the fiscal year 2027 proposed budget.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Before I turn this over to Josh, this is our second proposed FY27 proposed budget work session. As a reminder, we met on January 27th. The intent is to really start the discussion of our 2027 proposed budget, basically to provide facts for you, information, data. Since the last work session, Josh has been providing a lot of feedback to you. Tonight, you'll see some of that feedback. There's things also to, Councilmember Bradbury had asked about us putting together a public survey to get priorities from the community, and so those are some of the things that we're working on as well. This evening, again, as mentioned, we'll be providing more feedback, some additional data to you. And then our hope is that as part of the discussion, you can share with us some of your priorities as we move forward in crafting the proposed budget this year. With that, I'll turn it over to Josh.
Just quickly, we do have someone signed up for public comment on this item, but what I'll do is I'll have Josh give his presentation. You can ask questions during that, and then before, though, we open up other questions and conversation, we'll do the public comment and then have that conversation. So just want to give everyone the roadmap. Take it away, Josh.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, governing body, Mayor. Obviously, like City Manager said, we're talking a little bit about the 2027 budget tonight. And so just getting into the agenda, we'll talk about kind of historical budget trends, answer some of the questions that were posed at the last session, review some of the policy considerations, talk about timing of a sales tax initiative if that route is chosen, and then just review the calendar for the year. So just getting into it, kind of like we said last week, general fund, the largest expenditures in the general fund are personnel. And so what we provided on the screen is just what we spent from 2022 to 2025. So the main thing to take away from the slide is obviously we had some union reopeners in 23, and then we had some union contracts kick online in 25. So that's where that growth has occurred. Now, one thing to keep in mind is this isn't all the city's personnel costs. Obviously, we have our utilities funds that pays for employees. We have our special highway fund that pays for employees, our parking fund, et cetera. This is solely within the general fund. So it could be a case where the public works department has other employees within its department, but they're not paid in the general fund. So just one thing to keep that in mind. And then also too, obviously the increase from the 25 actuals to the 26 budget is pretty high. 26 budget assumes fully staffed. Obviously, we're not fully staffed right now. We have budgeted positions about 1,174, but currently we only have a head count about 1,070. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. And then also, this isn't just base wages. This is healthcare. This is any overtime, standby pay, any payroll taxes, KP&F. So this is what we call those fully loaded costs. So that's one thing to keep in mind on this too. There we go. So kind of just reviewing. So just in the general fund, in 2026, 791, and looking back into 2022, 781 FTE. So it's gone up by 10. Part of that were some of the new services, like the Planning Housing Services Division was added within that time, and a couple of other things. And then also when we projected last week, that projection for 27 automatically assumed, and also in 26, that we unfunded or froze 10 police officer positions, 7 firefighter positions and a battalion chief, and then emergency preparedness manager. So we didn't eliminate the FTE, but we lowered our budget authority within the 26 budget and 27 budget just to make it balanced with the amount of resources we had. And then one thing that I'm still working on, and I apologize I haven't gotten this out yet, is department level changes that are not personnel related. So I thought I'd hit the macro high level ones tonight, and then later on, hopefully later this week or early next, send out specific department ones. And so what you can expect to see over the next week or two is what changed within each department. Now, Those will be material changes, which is, are we paying a vendor more? Did the subscription go up within a certain contract? Or are we doing more of something? Not necessarily did we switch vendors, but we're still paying the same amount. So we may not have paid a vendor from 21 to 23, but now we're paying them in 24 and 25. So we want to kind of fine tune that and make sure it's as accurate as possible. That way it's not misleading at all. But just getting into the macro high level items. So we talked about this a lot. So from 21 to 25, what we paid the county in terms of inmate charges went up $1 million. Our property insurance from 2021 to 2025 went up $1.4 million. Our health insurance claims skyrocketed by $5.3 million in 4 years. And then same thing with prescription drug charges. And then also too, over the last 18 months or 14 months, we've been switching ERP systems. So we've kind of had to go online with 2 systems to run concurrent. So there's obviously extra costs associated with that in the short term now. In the 27 budget and onward, we're just paying for one system, but that's just something to keep in mind as we made this transition from 24 to 26. And then what I did pull for department specific, and obviously there's quite a bit more, are things that went up. So our public defender contract that was renewed 2 years ago, that went up because we changed vendors. Our body cameras, that went up in cost. Traffic engineering service in the public works department, that went up. And then also too, what you can expect to see when we provide it is a lot of those project commodity costs, such as concrete, copper, asphalt, that's not necessarily purchased out of the general fund. That's purchased out of the utilities fund, either through their projects or the citywide half-cent sales tax fund. But we'll kind of give you on our bid documents how those have transitioned over time from 21 to 25 to show any inflationary increase. Obviously, there's been some, but just to give you an idea of what a street project that was 1 mile long cost in 21 versus 2025. And then, so kind of just some reduction scenarios. So obviously, we can transfer money into the general fund. We can delay projects, shift more of our mill levy into the general fund. But if we didn't structurally change how we were, this is what each of a proration of cut would look like. So 2.5% cut, those are the figures, 5% cut, 7.5% cut, 10% cut, et cetera. Just to give you an idea of how much would be in each department. Now, that's a very just high level overview. Obviously, we'd want to go in each department, see what's working, what's not working, because some departments the council may prioritize, hey, we know we really need that, but this other thing in another department may not be as high of a priority. So this is just kind of just to show you what the numbers would look like. Obviously, there's some fine tuning, which is why we're talking early on in the process. And then a couple of other things. This is just kind of a review of the slide from a couple weeks back. So things that we want to get decided are the kind of what does our CIP want to look like, and obviously we're doing that in April and May. But the thing that we want to hit home on, what projects do we want to actually commit to? Because if we're holding a project in 2028 or 2029, we have to hold dollars today in order to pay for that in the future. So, but if we don't commit to that, we can maybe potentially use some of those dollars in the 2027 budget. Obviously, we've talked about Project View quite a bit. That's a $1.5 million economic development grant that's going to be paid back over 25 years. And then we also have to have a $1.1 million purchase price for the parcel. That payment would be made in October 2026 and come out of this year's budget. And then also anything to do with the hotel, we didn't have any operating transfers plugged in for the 2026 budget for the hotel, but any money that we get from a conceived sale would come back into the general fund for this year, because that's where we've been paying those transfers like we did a couple weeks ago out of the general fund. Just a reminder, a couple other things to keep in mind. Contracts that are expiring, obviously for 2026 will be up for two utility unions in Aspen Water and WPC, and then we'll be back at it again in 2027 with the big ones, police, fire, Teamsters, AFT, which is a large portion of the city. Now, on the revenue side, our utility rates are currently set for 3 years for 24 through 2026. We'll discuss that throughout this year on what our next rate cycle will look like. We kind of floated this idea at the last meeting. We have a built-up citywide half-cent sales tax fund balance. Do we want to use some of that built-up fund balance to help our current operations, which is our street department that fixes potholes, that maintains just general street maintenance purposes? And then also our parking fund, as we reviewed, expenses are outpacing revenue. So we could have the bond payments that are currently paid out of the parking fund be paid out of the high fund balance we have out of the debt service fund in order to get by for a couple more years. Something else that's been talked about too is increasing our permitting and planning fees to run profit neutral. We run about $600,000 expenses over revenue. Do we want to increase that all in 1 year, over a 5-year period, 3-year period, what have you, to eventually run profit neutral? And then finally, do we want to talk about doing an additional sales tax initiative to where we could have 0.4% go to a general public safety and a fire station replacement program, and then the last 0.1% go to affordable housing and homelessness initiatives. So those are some of the policy considerations I think that are going to be brought forward to you throughout the course of the year just to consider. And then this was prepared by the legal department, and I know the law has changed, and I'll let Nick talk to that if there's questions on it, but I'll just go through the first column. So if we wanted to have a vote in November 2026, hypothetically, and full disclosure, yes, the council has to vote on that, and eventually the public has to vote on it too. But the council would approve any election language ballot that would be sent to the election office in July 2026. That has to be published 21 to 60 days before elections. Then the election would be held on a November ballot. And then you can only collect on the first day of a quarter, and has to be 90-day notification period. So we have our hand in choose. If we, obviously, there's a lot of prior steps to be done, but if this was the route that was chosen, on some of those dates, you could choose which date you could start collecting. So it's just something to keep in mind. But obviously, again, that has to be voted on by the governing body and eventually the public. And then finally, I always think it's good to have a proposed budget calendar on this. So obviously, tonight's the second time we're talking about the 2027 budget. But then we'll kind of get kicked off in April, May of presenting the CIP, to where, again, the CIP informs our operating budget because that's where our capital projects are listed out at, and a lot of our revenue sources that could help fund our general fund also fund our capital fund. So it really depends on a policy decision. Does the council want to prioritize funding, keep the funding levels the same for the capital budget, or do we want to divert some of those funds into the operating budget? Ultimately, that's a governing body decision, but that's why we do the capital budget first. And then obviously staff will keep working on saving any money that we can now in the meantime between when the budget's presented eventually in July. But then it's just typical standard policies where we had to have our various R&R and public budget hearings, and then eventually we'll have to approve a budget in September to be submitted to the county clerk by October 1st. So that's just a quick and high-level overview of the calendar that we've reviewed before, but always think it's good just to have it fresh on everyone's mind. So with that, obviously, we'll have you to answer any questions or discussions. And again, I haven't provided the specific non-personnel department increases. I talked a little bit about the macro level changes tonight, but I'm hoping to get that out relatively soon. There's a rough draft, but I just wanted to make sure and then have departments review it too. That way, if there was something that was discontinued for 3 years and we chose a new vendor, it wasn't misleading. It wasn't misleading when it goes to the governing body. So we're going to fine tune that and then hopefully send that out as soon as possible.
Councilmember Bradbury, and then I'm going to open up to public comment. Councilmember Bradbury?
Yes, I'm trying to bring up my questions here. On the, when you were talking about the increases in some of those departments, like the health insurance and the inmate charges, what exactly does increase? Sorry, I'm having a heck of a time this evening. What contributed to those increases?
So I'll start with the health insurance. Essentially, we chose to have more coverage on some of our plans that we provided, and so there was more of a claim cost increase within our health insurance fund, and so we had to raise our premiums that the employer and employee paid into those funds over the last couple of years. Now, that was a huge increase for 2026 and a moderate increase for 2025. But essentially, the city was providing more services, and we didn't have revenue to cover on the back end, or we were using fund balance to cover that increase. But and then we made changes to the plan in mid 2025, and we've seen those claims go down quite a bit to where we should be. Our health insurance fund should be pretty stable for the next 3 years, I would say, since we did make a $2 million transfer into the fund and did increase the employer side by almost 15%. Now, on the inmate charges, that's partly twofold. That contracts, and I could have Judge come up here if he wants to speak on it more, but that contract, the two variables you have to look at are the hours served and then also the price fluctuation over time. So from 25 to 26, that went from $4 a day or an hour, I can't remember the exact time stipulation, to $4.16, but that's gone up in both hours and payment negotiated with the county.
And on the property insurance charges, what contributed to the increase in that?
I think I would need to get with HR and our broker to see what contributed to that. I'm not as familiar with that.
Okay.
But I would need to circle back on that one.
Okay. I do have other questions on the department specific, but I don't want to.
Yeah, we'll do public comment first, and then I think the judge was going to add a quick comment here.
Yeah, I was just going to address the Curry Anthony, administrative judge for municipal court. In 2023, Councilwoman, we took over prosecution for domestic violence cases, and that's kind of been one of the biggest drivers of this increase in jail costs. For example, now on one of my dockets now, we have an individual that's got 7 cases, and so when the time, domestic related, when the time comes for sentencing, if the city prosecutors are going to recommend 180 days in jail, in all likelihood, the judges are going to accept that to keep not only the victim safe, but the community safe. This last year, we did renegotiate from $4 an hour per inmate to $4.17 an hour per inmate. City manager and I have looked at the numbers. The financial impact per year with that increase of 17 cents is around $60,000 to $70,000 a year tops. In a way, a lot of these defendants do have companion cases that are state charges, and if that's the case, a person's being held on the city and the county. We don't get billed for that. So along with mental health, drugs in the community, domestic violence, that's sort of the explanation for why those costs have been increasing.
Thank you. That's helpful, especially if people in the community are watching, to understand how those costs came about.
Yeah, because on average, that's it's a little less than this, but that's $100 a day for us to have to put whenever we have someone in the jail. So that adds up. And I mean, to the judge's point, I don't think we want to not put people who need to be in jail.
Right.
And that's
right.
but that's kind of the 2 quick points, then we'll call. I guess first, Josh, can you tell us what time period are we looking at on these line items? Is this 1 year, 2 years, 5 years?
Sorry, so slide 5, that is from good question, and I'm sorry, I should have denoted that. That's from 2021 to 2025.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So it's a 5-year, okay. That doesn't make it any better, but that helps. No, those weren't 1-year jumps. It's just stuff. Yeah. All right, we do have one person signed up for public comment. That is Danielle Twimlow.
Thank Thank you. I did go and watch the previous budget meeting that you guys had as a special meeting, and I really appreciated you all taking that extra time to have that discussion and heard some things that I thought were really promising. Councilwoman Hiller mentioned needing to really show that we're being good stewards of the money, so that when we're asking for increases in sales tax, we need to be proving that before we ask those questions. I think Mayor Duncan mentioned looking more closer into certain budgets, and those are all really important. I appreciate the request for a survey about what that public dollars could look like if a sales tax happened. However, I would like to know what those previous survey that we spent, I think like $70,000 on to survey the community just this last time we talked about having a sales tax increase last year. I believe we spent money to survey roughly 500 people before that, and I don't recall ever seeing those results, so that would be great, because it was specifically also part of that sales tax question was for public safety. And, you know, I want to throw out some things that I think is really important for us to look at when we're talking about that kind of stuff. You know, everyone deserves a living wage. We know that the general public is not receiving that living wage, but just from these numbers, you know, when we're talking public safety, in this period of time that Josh has developed for us in this chart, the police department had a 50.95% increase in their budget in that 4-year period of time. You know, police and fire, public safety take up 70% of our general fund, with $0 dedicated to any prevention or intervention measures. We know by the National League of Cities, the statistics and data on return of investment is very clear. For every dollar that we spend on intervention and prevention, we have a $3.50 to $17.70 return on investment. That would help with our cost into the Department of Corrections. That would help with our cost in, you know, all realms of our city, with our unsheltered, with our homeless, with our poverty rate. So we know that if we were sending these funds, this public safety dollars, to some percentage of that to this prevention and intervention measures, it would benefit everyone. I do want to point out thank you for finding those things that we've had the biggest changes on, but just so everybody is aware, that in 2015, Senate Bill 18 demands that Axon body cameras are required. So we have to keep that contract as is. Utilities department saw a 55.87% increase in their end of year fund balance over that period of time, a 55.87% increase in their end of year fund balance. So I think we really need to be thinking about that. That far outpaces inflation when we're talking about the median household income increasing in that same time period 2.19%. Poverty rates haven't budged and slightly increased. The cost of living has increased 18%. So we have solutions. We need to do a full audit of how this funding is going. We need to be investing in prevention and intervention measures. We need to be doing a cost burden analysis to do tiered programs for water department and do a projection of what those revenue would be if we started building in an incentive stream on a stream on that incentive. Thank you.
All right. Back to questions, comments from the governing body. We're good. All right. Councilmember Hiller.
Thank you. It's kind of holding back a little bit. City Manager and Josh, I've made a lot of recommendations before, and I'm hoping that there's no need to bring them up again. So regarding debt and overall budgeting, something I'm not seeing that I'd like to at least put out is I know that preparing the entire budget book with all sources of income, not just general fund, is a bigger deal than just talking about the general fund. But I think without putting the entire budget together, and as you're able to do the different sources of funds that come into any particular department, that's the only way that we really have a full picture of how much staffing we have in a department, where we can really do a full comparison to what the staff or the ebb and flow is of staffing and the programming at the same time. It varies what some of our other sources are targeted for, and in some cases, they could ebb and flow amongst the expenses because certain expenses that we're looking at could be eligible for funding from more than one source. And so I just feel like we're kind of doing the budget with blinders on if we're not seeing all the pieces at the same time.
Josh, I'll take that. So in our first work session, we showed you an all funds fund schedule that showed everything from our general fund to our health insurance funds. I mean, we kind of gave you a full picture of everything that was in there.
Right.
We've identified some of those areas where there, is potential overlap. We talked about like use of the half-cent citywide sales tax to supplement some of the positions that are in the motor fuel tax, our public works folks. So we have that. Essentially, what we're trying to get from you tonight, we're not trying to make the budget tonight, but we're trying to get your priorities, we're trying to get your feedback. Again, some of those policy discussion items, the considerations on slide 7, I mean, those are some of the things that we've been floating both in this room as well as individually. And so, again, we presented that all funds fund schedule already, and we actually attached it to the item.
You brought up an example that is really important to me, but it didn't sound like the recommendation went anywhere, and that is, with the half-cent sales tax that's for rebuilding our existing city streets and sidewalks and so on, we've got that coming up in 2 years for people to renew. It was supposed to be to rebuild the streets, and so if we aren't done building the streets, last time I asked for a master plan for where we are with all of the main streets, so we've got an idea how close we are to, quote, finished, before we would divert any money away. That's a good example, but I don't, each one of those is an entity unto itself, but it's not just robbing Peter to pay Paul to get by for next year. There's other consequences. So again, I hope that those suggestions are taken very seriously, because if you can't see the whole thing at once, it's hard to know what you're moving over and what's left behind.
Councilmember, we have we have an inventory of streets that need to be either mill and overlaid or reconstructed, and obviously that need, that inventory exceeds the amount of available resources. Going back to your point about the half-cent sales tax supplementing our streets crews, those projects, whenever we award to a contractor, we pay for the contractor salaries in that. So that was part of the rationale, was if we're paying for the salaries of contractors to complete these projects, I think that it's an acceptable use to pay for the salaries of our employees who are doing the same work. So that's just something, again, as we put it here as a policy consideration, that was the rationale behind that.
Well, even prior to being on the council, those discussions occurred, and we did put 3 full-time positions in, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years in, but we've gone back and forth about taking money out of that to pay for the snow melt materials, and it was done for a year or 2, and we backed it back out, which I'm grateful for. Similarly, to do just preventive maintenance, when that fund was intended to be to bring the streets up so that we could do the preventive maintenance on them and keep them all in good shape. Again, we need to see a whole picture of what that inventory looks like and how we are. We talked about it a little bit last time in terms of mill and overlaying. For instance, 10th Street that only got a mill and overlay the first time and fell apart. So what's the best way from a management point of view to get that in that example? I had another question, got a short list.
No, it's fine. So we're here, that's
Where's
exactly
the-
what we're here for.
We started out with this $15 million balance figure. As of today, with what's adjusted here, where are you thinking we are?
So in the slide that was presented 3 weeks ago, the amount of, if we don't structurally change revenues, we're going to be about 127 million, and expenses, all in 140 million. Now, accounting for Project View, if we make that $2.6 million cash payment, that's coming out of our that's going to come out of our general fund somewhere in 2020, if we commit to that project and we pay that out in October 2026. So that's, if we spend that out in 2026, that's less money we'll have for the 2027 budget. So that's how that $15 million was derived. Now, one thing that I will continue to harp on, and I'm glad you brought up your first point about how funds commingle, right? So one specific example is our health insurance fund, where that is largely funded, on average, 85% from the general fund. So that money is then transferred from the general fund as an expense into the health insurance fund as a revenue. So if claims continue to go down as we think, we hope we can chop bits and pieces off of that $15 million. Now, I'll just be honest with you, there's not enough bits and pieces to make up that $15 million. But I hope as we get more information through the first 3 or 4 months of the year, that number's going to come down a little bit. But that's kind of where things stand.
Okay, so actually the 15, if I'm following you, went down to about 13 something, but then because we have the extra money that we need to put into Project View, it brings it back up to the 15 more or less?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay, I mean, it helps me to know which one is a one-time thing and which one is operating budget. So again, it just helps to see that. One of the ways we'd wanted to, again, I hope we can look at them from a management point of view. What are we trying to do? Are we getting it done? Are there some economies? One of the things we've talked about for the last number of years was increasing the number of staff engineers so that we could reduce the amount of contract work we were doing for both engineering and project management on our projects. Is any, we got a fabulous new engineer, I know that, and staff was talking about doing some of these extra mill and overlays with in-house engineers for the first time in forever, and I think that's great. Is there a factor in yet for further filling of positions that we have and reductions of contracted engineering?
So just, I'm going to speak high level in principle. If, let's say, we hired 3 or 4 more engineers and we didn't have to pay consultants, the city would save money overall, but that would be savings within the citywide half-cent sales tax fund and any capital budget project and way it was funded. Those really aren't, we don't do much services out of the general fund. Now, one thing that was on slide 4 or 5, if we had a full-time traffic engineer, that person would be doing services that we currently pay WSP and Benish to do, so there would be savings in that regard. But by and large, project time is charged to the citywide half-cent sales tax fund and any other project fund. But in terms of saving money in the general fund, a traffic engineer would, if we had a traffic engineer, and I'll let Braxton or Jason speak to this, hopefully we could rationalize getting off those on-call traffic engineering salaries or services to third party.
Well, city manager's got a response. To me, that kind of combination of management and dollars, budgeting, that gives us some targeting on what to do with our staffing to keep the great people that we have, use their talents. You know, one of the things I think that we've been suffering with for years is when we had so much contracted out, if you were a staff engineer for the city, you were just supervising other people who were getting to do the work instead of getting to do it yourself. And so there's a win-win in pulling it back in.
And Josh, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we also, I think we've reduced that line item $300,000 as we've been bringing engineers on.
Yeah, so, well, I don't know if it's necessary because we brought engineers on, but that was part of the cut from in the 26 budget is we did have $600,000 proposed, but that was capped at $300,000. But the reason we're using WSP and other third parties, we haven't had a traffic engineer in in 2.5+ years. But if we had a traffic engineer, we could definitely look at that and have those services in-house, kind of like you were referring to. That money is specifically coming out of the general fund, but most of that other project time is in regards to the citywide half-cent sales tax fund.
But again, it all goes into a pot at a certain point, and so if we can save millions of dollars on contracted engineering because we've got a couple more in-house, that's huge. Also, I was involved in a couple of conversations today. I think everybody knows I'm working on changing our culture of property maintenance, and John Chardon and I were talking about how we calculate billable hours when we do. In our case, we were talking about code compliance and abatement kinds of things, but all over the city, whether it's on a regular basis or when there's been a disaster and we're putting together a voucher to FEMA, we've realized that in the past anyway, that the city was underbilling for what our actual costs were. And so I would suggest, and this is a new one as far as I know for all of our budget considerations, that we do an audit or inventory of where we are billing our own time out and make sure that we are optimizing fairly, of course, what we're billing. For instance, if somebody's on a site cleanup for an hour, it took a half hour to get ready, a half hour to get there, and a half hour to get back, and a half hour to put the truck back. So it wasn't just 1 hour of billable time, it was probably 4. Things like that, but also even the hourly rate that we use for our employees, you don't use their salary and just divide it by 2,000 and some change, because there are taxes, health insurance, vacation and annual leave that reduces the number of hours that you actually would want to use for your math to come up with what our net is for frontline service. We were just looking at some samples, and it was thought-provoking in terms of maybe something we could look at overall wherever we're doing that citywide. So I would suggest that. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Questions or comments from other members? Josh, you talked about we have 1,174 positions, 1,070 of them currently filled. Are we going through those and prioritizing those, I guess, for lack of a better word, to determine what we can keep unfilled or eliminate versus what we absolutely need to fill as we go through this process?
I would defer to the city manager, because he handles ultimately all the staffing decisions at the end of the day. But I just know in my span of control, I've done that. But I think that's something we definitely need to talk about as we unfold the process.
Short answer is yes. I think we've shared some of the thoughts with you, especially as we have been filling some of our executive vacancies and leaving some of those positions vacant that may be vacated through some of those promotions. So the short answer is yes. And again, we'll look at that as we continue to experience vacancies.
When do we expect to get the CIP, the council members?
So we're hoping, let me look at a calendar. We're hoping late March and targeting for that first week of April to go over it publicly, but hopefully get it a week or two before to the council members.
Okay. Councilmember Bradbury. Maybe.
Yes. I was curious, 27 reduction scenarios slide. Is that just a number pulled percentage-wise, or were there certain considerations taken in to get to those numbers? Like, for example, does that 2.5% or 5% include FTE reductions? Does it include delay in hiring or OOE or other administrative expenses? Or is that, what does that include? Or is that just a a number for, just as an example?
Councilmember, that is just a number for an example. I think what we're trying to show is that our deficit is projected at $15 million. Even at a 10% reduction across all those departments, we're still at 13.2. So there's nothing behind it. It's more just for illustration, more for reference.
One of the things I've brought up the last couple of years, and maybe eventually we'll decide whether it's a really good idea and do it or close the door on it, but when I talk to staff, budgeting staff of different departments, they all say this would be a great idea. Not all of them, but most of them. So right now, I think we run our IT budget oddly, in the sense that our IT department crosses into every department, provides services and equipment to most of our departments, yet we have every department doing their own budgeting for all of their individual IT, instead of IT, who's really managing all of that, be the budgeting hub and then distributing those products via their own department, right? Now, it's not that this leads necessarily to massive savings immediately, but it would give then IT some more control over helping control some of those costs by knowing this department needs this every year, so we're going to make sure they get it, do the request through them, great, we're going to budget. And so I would really like us, once again, to take a serious look. And it's going to take somebody who's smart to actually sit down and figure out how to untangle all that. But I think in the long run, it could lead us to some savings through IT, just because then they have a complete picture that's right in front of them versus, everybody trying to do their own thing and then piecemealing it out. So just something I would encourage us to, once again, for my third year in a row, bring it up. And I may push a little harder this year, but I'd like us to take a look at as we get into the budgeting process.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. The other thing I'll throw out to the universe, because this will be fun, there is currently a bill in the legislature that could become law, some version of it, by the time this session is over. We'll see what it looks like when it's done, but there's two versions of it that could impact this discussion, because both versions would take effect immediately before we hit October 1 and have to submit a budget. As introduced, the couple of big things it would do is, originally as intended, it would have said we would submit our budgets on October 1, and if our property tax portion of our budget exceeded 3% over the prior year, and it would only include immediate new growth, nothing else, not our bonding, not any of those other TIFs and incentives that come off in that year, it would go to an election in November, and the citizens, so if we submitted a budget that said it was 5% of that growth in that category, it would, if it's 3% or less, no vote of the people, we just lock it in. Anything above that would go to a vote of the people in November, and at that point, it wouldn't be for the immediate budget in 27, it would be for determine that for 28. I think we can all decide that, even the legislature, first blush, said that doesn't seem manageable to do 2-year out budgeting. So there was an amendment that now makes it a petition, and it would require 10% of signatures from 10% of the people who voted in the last presidential election. And if it got the 10% and you went above the 3%, you'd drop back into that 3% number, and you have to figure out your budget that way. That petition would happen before the October 1 deadline, so probably in the July-August window, giving us September to figure that out. That would be very significant to how we budget, including this budget and the impact that would have on this budget. So they also made some amendments that, with the petition process, that would actually include bonding and debt, that would actually include some additional new growth, which would also help the cause. They will vote on that tomorrow in the House, and then we'll see what the Senate does with it. So I just want to give everyone a heads up that as we're doing this budget, that doesn't stop what we're doing, but come July 1, or actually come the end of March when they go home, that could be the new law of the land, which will complicate all of this. So I just wanted to put that out there in the universe. All right, any other questions or comments from the council?
If I may.
Yes, Councilmember Bradbury.
What are some of the things that we can do now to start realizing some savings for 27?
So, Councilmember, I think the first thing that we talked about is, as we are consolidating, I'll give you an example. We recently consolidated our procurement and finance division through a promotion for our economic development director. And with the combination of procurement and finance, we're leaving a division director position vacant. And that'll be one of our recommended cuts for 27. So, going to, I think it was the mayor's question as far as how we prioritize positions and the things that we look at, that is just one example of how we're looking at our positions to, again, to freeze and then to cut, recommend, propose to eliminate as part of the 27 budget. As Josh mentioned, we built in, I guess what we would call mandated turnover or unfunding of 10 police officer positions and 7 firefighters and a battalion chief. Those are things that we built into our 2026 budget. And I think between like those two, I think we're saving somewhere like $1.6 million. So those are things that we've already built into our budget. And again, we'll take opportunities to keep positions vacant as we either consolidate departments or as we make promotions and things of that nature.
Councilmember Kell.
I've said this before when it comes to our staff. Our biggest thing we need to watch for is not hurting our staff with overworking them by cutting too many people. When it comes to the fire, police, not hurting the community by cutting too many of them. We seem to be having an issue over what previous 6 months prior to this was a lot of house fires were going on, and we can't have burnout and then all that overtime on top of that when we're trying to have people fill those vacant positions and things like that and try to fill those holes. And then we get into the other aspect of when we start contracting work out or even just temps for certain aspects of the jobs, we're paying more for those jobs than what we do sometimes in-house. So we need to definitely, look if there are unnecessary positions, redundant positions, things that could be consolidated, definitely look there. But if we cut our staff too much, we're hurting our staff and hurting our citizens because we can't get things done. And I know when it comes to certain aspects, like when we earlier talked about roads, we don't have that many contractors to do that stuff. So if we don't have the staff to do it and we depend solely on the contractors, we're going to be way behind on that aspect of things. So we definitely need to, like I said, look at our redundancies and where we can, but just to cut is and that's been some people's philosophies, is to me is a bad idea. And especially when it comes to the public safety sector of things. I understand that is a large portion of our budget, and the mindset is, well, those have been unfilled for, let's say, 6 months. Well, how often do we have classes and that kind of thing, and how often are those classes full? Because it looks at, and this is talking to the firefighters that I've been able to meet with the most, when they're constantly having to maybe do overtime to fill in for vacant positions or to let people go on vacation, they're getting burned out, and then they're wanting to take vacation, which creates this huge cycle and then creates overtime. And if they could be fully staffed where they're not having to plug gaps, that saves us a lot of money, and that saves our community by having firefighters who aren't burnt out going out to try to put out all these fires that we have. So it's just it's something that I know it's always the easy thing to look at staff and cutting staff, but to me it's not the best one, especially when it comes from the public safety side. Thank you.
So I don't disagree with you, Councilmember Kell. I agree with you in the standpoint that, and I've said this for years, I'm not a big fan of across the cut percentages, right? I think every department is unique and different, and you have to be somewhat incisive, and so sometimes that means you're going to have a different percentage from one department to the other. And I think to your point, that's an approach. It's a little harder to do it that way in terms of the work we got to put in to get there, but it addresses some of what you're talking about. I will say, though, regardless of what decisions this council makes about revenue moving forward, whether it's sales tax or property tax or whatever that decision is, it's not going to fully fill this gap, right? And so we are going to have to make one, or what I call one or two big tough decisions. That is just a fact. And that's our job. We're going to figure it out. But I think that's why over the next, from this conversation and last month's conversation and the conversation we have in the next month, that's why Josh and the city manager and everyone else need to hear your priorities. Because when it comes time to make those one or two big decisions, staff will make them, right? Because they got to fill that vacuum at some point to get us a budget. But I know they would prefer that at least as they're making that decision, they know what we've prioritized along those lines so that we can have that discussion amongst ourselves and with the public about what the impacts of those decisions and that revenue decline is going to be to get there. So just remember that as we continue to have this conversation, that letting everybody know what you prioritize over other areas is critical to that conversation when that time comes. And be ready when we come and say we've got to make one or two big decisions.
If I may, Mayor,
Yes.
I agree completely with what you're saying. Any of those decisions that we make along those lines have to be very targeted and specific to each department. Councilwoman Ortiz had mentioned previously the voluntary retirement incentive program, and there was a little bit of discussion about that. I'm not sure if the positions that may be eligible for retirement were ever looked at, or what the potential cost impact budget that would be.
Yeah, so I've actually had that information gathered, but since this meeting got moved up a week, I haven't had a chance to meet with leadership. In terms of cost, obviously, it's going to vary on what your parameters are on whether or not you're paying X percentage of payout and then how long if you're offering health insurance. So the plan is to meet with more, then we can send a memo out to council or brief in that manner.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions this evening from council? No? Anything else from Josh or staff at this point?
I just want to say one more thing, back to Councilmember Bradbury's question on what are some things we can do now. And what I always think CIPs are large, besides personnel, CIP or capital projects are our largest expenditures in the city. So I'd encourage the council to go back and look at last year's CIP because it's really not going to change too much, and see, because just for example, if we delay $10 million of bonding for 1 year, that's theoretically almost $800,000, $900,000 that we could shift from our going into our debt service fund into our general fund to get us by and let our revenue growth rate catch up with our expense growth rate. Now, obviously that's not fun in some capacity because that means we're not necessarily doing some projects when we originally intended to, but that's one of the trade-offs that the council can mull over as a policy decision. So that's something to keep in mind and something to review. And like I said, the CIP is not going to change too much, but just something to keep in mind.
Okay. All right, well, if there is nothing else, then we will move on to public comment. At this time, I'll call up the individuals signed up to speak. Remember that you have 4 minutes to address the governing body. If you haven't been here before, it'll beep at you once, but you still have 1 minute left after the first beep, and the timer is right there on the podium. So first up, I have Mr. Ron Desch. You're all right. Welcome to the city council. Correct.
I have pictures showing Lisa Gregson's home before this search that I will show you after all of this if you'd like to see it. This raid, I'm sorry, not a raid, it was a search, October the 24th. And I'm slow getting around to this because I had 4 operations in 2025 and a new knee put in November, so I'm crippling around and I'm way behind and everything. I apologize for holding this up. I was born in Topeka. I've lived here almost most of my life. And I graduated from Hayden High School, Washburn University. I retired from Kansas Highway Patrol. And so I know how things work around here, or at least how they used to. I took an oath when I became a law enforcement officer with the patrol. And I took a very similar oath when I joined the Marine Corps. And I don't remember in any of those oaths promising that I would be cruel or mean to people that I was sworn to protect. These pictures are Lisa Gregson's apartment. I'm her stepfather. My wife Sharon is her mother. And Sharon and I own half of Lisa's condo, so we are involved in this. I'm here to tell you that the Topeka Police Department is out of control. The pictures you see indicate a group who is unaccountable to citizens. It is a bully mentality. When I went to the police station, I showed these pictures to the lieutenant in charge of professional standards. He said he wasn't shocked by the pictures. He claimed that a robot probably broke the 4 interior doors, but I'm not sure how the robot got to the second floor to break down the bathroom door and the bedroom doors. It's unlikely the robot broke the glass of an unlocked storm door. And one of the very first pictures there was that door, unlocked glass storm door was shattered. Now, I'm certain that the robot didn't open bottles of shampoo and oil to spill on the floor, or to break candle holders and scatter the broken glass all over the floor of the bedroom. It didn't pull food out of the cabinets and drop it on the floor. The robot didn't cover a security camera in Lisa's home, but one of the female officers did. Now, I'm not really sure why the police department or police officers who are doing a legitimate and reputable search would have to cover up a security camera. Apparently, they didn't want to see who was doing this. Lisa's son was the subject of the warrant, and it was legitimate. He sometimes stayed with Lisa, so the search for a gun he was accused of having was legitimate. And the police department did find a gun. Ironically, his DNA was not found on the gun, so it can't be used in a trial. So all that damage was for naught. Lisa and James are nice people, the owners of the condo. They don't cause problems for other people. They both work full-time. They have good, honest jobs.
Mr. Desch, your initial time, do you need more time?
I do.
Is there any objection to 2 more minutes? You have 2 more minutes, sir.
Thank you very much. They're nice people, and they don't cause other people any problems. And they don't deserve this kind of abuse. They're both severely depressed because of this. And you could probably see why. If this happened to you, you would be down in the dumps too. They don't have it all cleaned up yet, and they still can't use the upstairs bedroom. We haven't filed a damage claim, and this is really sad. We haven't filed a damage claim with the city clerk. I was hoping to have an attorney advise us first. However, there is no attorney I can find who will touch this. Old friends of mine retired from the Topeka Police Department told me I wouldn't find an attorney. They are all afraid to lose the business they get from the city attorney's office. I'm still looking. I want to find an attorney because I really think this sort of thing should be a jury trial and covered by the news. I'm asking you take turns to go to these homes after the police do these searches, or a trusted representative. Because if you, the folks in authority, will go and watch this a little closer, I bet you it gets cleaned up really quickly. They're not going to leave a mess for you to see like that. Now, would you like for me to show you the before pictures?
Well, Mr. Dish, your time is up, but I will, my office will do some follow-up on this, and I'll get in touch with you, have my assistant, and I'll get some follow-up, and we'll do some
Yeah,
follow-up.
we just got these pictures late this afternoon. Didn't have time to get them printed off, so.
Sure.
Sure,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep. Thank you,
I
sir.
appreciate this.
Next up for public comment, I believe, is Martha Boatwright, I think online. Miss
can you hear
Boatwright,
me?
the time is yours.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Usually I'm here and I'm talking about tenant stuff and what have you, but sometimes you just see something that motivates you that's outside of your usual wheelhouse. And mine was watching the most recent JADO meeting and hearing the people from Go Topeka very enthusiastically talking about the 8 offers for data centers to be built around Topeka, Kansas. And since I know a lot of people don't follow JADO or some of the smaller, like little kind of side committee meetings, they just watch city council, I wanted to put that on people's radars. These are just initial proposals that have been presented to Go Topeka as quote-unquote business investments in our community. And of course, the issue with that is that, as Kevin Cook at the meeting discussed, data centers are disasters. They produce a massive amount of noise pollution, air pollution. Each one of these is going to be, 500 megawatts or something like that of power that they're going to require? I mean, I'm hoping that this all gets nixed by Evergy before it even gets to us. But the people there were being very enthusiastic and very strongly endorsing this, in spite of the fact that everywhere the data centers have gone up. They have produced a temporary increase in construction employment during their construction, and then just a handful of jobs afterwards because they are so low maintenance. They are not an ongoing investment. They wind up raising the energy bills of everyone in the community because of the increased demand. Frequently, they wind up raising or draining water reserves because of the needs for cooling them. And also just, the whole notion that we need to get on board with these that are largely going in towards developing large language learning models, aka AI, not really artificial intelligence, but that's what everybody calls it, because it's a growing field. It's a growing field. Yeah, it is growing. It is growing exponentially. It's like a balloon or bubble? Yeah, it's a bubble. And this is not the sort of thing that really is the future to our investment in Topeka. And I know this is still off in the future, but I also know that there was the level of enthusiasm coming from the Go Topeka people for these projects, trying to talk down the sensible voices in the room saying that this is a bad choice for Topeka, were pretty strong. And so I wanted to bring both my opinion in on this and hopefully maybe get a few other people who listen in at these general meetings and not at JADO, just to know that this is something that is being discussed, and this is something that we, for the good of our community, are going to have to work hard to oppose if the people in Go Topeka are trying to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boatwright. Next up, I have Lloyd Schroeder. Welcome, Mr. Schroeder.
Many of you have changed over the years. My name's Lloyd Schroeder. I know you. I don't want any economics lessons from you. But bless your heart for trying to educate. But I've been here for about 30 years. I need no longer to be here. I have about 6 properties inside the parameters of Topeka. They will be gone within the next 2 to 3 years. I was a 24% tax payer. as far as I know, I try to maintain a mild-mannered nature. But when I had different businesses, you know, I looked at how much the city was charging me, and I looked at how much was being stolen from me. And you guys far exceed what the thieves have stolen from me. I mean, it's just fascinating to me. But this guy said, he goes, Topeka, you go there for vacation, you come back on probation. There's something psychologically wrong with this system. I spent 20 years ago, probably, when I was younger and a lot dumber, I said that you guys should go to a single city manager, and you guys do your fun things, and the manager can come cut some ties, and that would be more efficient, so we could just fire one person. But you guys somehow have created the magic, and it just keeps going. I would encourage the city of Topeka to tell you guys 10% below, and I would do it for the next 5 years. So you don't have to worry and fret and everybody concerned. But also the fire department, couldn't they just drive out? I mean, their work's, they're scheduled 7 days a month that they work because they get paid 24 hours a day, whether they eat, sleep, or take a nap. I mean, if that is still true, then think about it. The other thing is there's got to be training so when you see things that are chaotic, you could react to them. I see a lot of things. I was just worried about getting my windows reimbursed if I followed this guy that stole buckets of soap out of the Dillons. And I was worried about whether I was getting backed up by the city or I was going to be backed up by the county. I would have went after him if it was the county. But I don't want any friendly fire, and they can't separate me from a crackhead. Okay? I mean, seriously. And when they cuffed me up backwards on my right wrist, and the kid was just scared out of his life. Probably one of those guys that just got out of the basement. But the whole thing is this. I showed up. I've done things. I've stood right there in front of that bench, and the city attorney lied. I paid the fee. I left. That's the beep. I got 1 minute.
Yep.
And I left. I went out and the building was raised, and he was saying testimony. He wasn't there next time I saw him. And we have a great system. You guys have a great judge, a great deal, but can you kind of prosecute people that need it? You know, I mean, I get dragged out, and I get to go spend Sunday at the jailhouse that wasn't clean. They tried to feed me things I would not eat. I thought one looked like the heel for a shoe, you know, and that was supposedly the meat. You know, if these people are sick, they need real food, and then when they take medicine, it might have a benefit. But if you're going to feed them like that they can't eat, and I didn't get to eat until the last day, and they finally bought me a baked potato. I was like, winner, you know. And I've spent 27 years in law enforcement, working in corrections. That was my part-time job. I wish you well, and I will spend no more time wasting my time. But there's some sort of disease you guys have, and it becomes worse because you're collaborated, and it's disappointing. But I would hope for you, and
Sir,
3 things, if you would.
Your time is up. Do you need 1 more minute?
Yeah. I
If
would
there's-
like
if
to
there's no
know.
Hold on, sir. If there's no objections, 1 more minute? Go ahead, 1
I
minute.
would like to know how, I looked at the budget, 1.2 million, because 1.1 million was what was offered for that hotel. There was somebody that should have taken a haircut on that was, I assume, a banker. No haircut was given. You guys wrote out a check for $7 million. If that came out of tax money, and then I heard the last number, you're going to get $1 million for it if you do all these other things. You know, I would have been high welcome to Walmart. I couldn't afford it. I would have had to write the check. And so if I missed it, and I would like to meet that guy that was the deal. The other thing is you have, what, $1.2 million? Why wouldn't you, and you drive down Topeka Boulevard, it's no better than it was. I mean, those houses are still there. What if you guys wrote out $10,000 checks and made it a contract so they could fix the things up so they look nicer, at least a hollow? We want to spend million and hire our friends. I wish you well.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Mr. Henry McClure.
Hello, Your Honor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Maybe the chickens have come home to roost. I would like everybody in Topeka, Kansas to go down to the old AT&T building, Link, buy a cup of coffee from Sparrow Coffee, and then look where $9.5 million went. This is 46 years of real estate on my standpoint. I've never seen such elegant tenant finish. The common areas there are A+. I've never seen this. That must be the nicest tenant finish I've ever seen in Topeka, if not anywhere else. I had an open checkbook on a project with John Hancock, and I couldn't spend money to make it look like that. But the taxpayers ought to go down and see where their sales tax went. As we're grinding over this budget and thinking about, well, where could I get $9.5 million? And you gave it to the private sector. You gave it to a private citizen. And originally that sales tax was to fix those roads. But it was also designed to make people to want to live here, increase the population and broaden the tax base. After 25 years, you haven't done it. So you want to know where to put you want to get $5 million, one of those hard choices, cut off, go Topeka, and just put the money in our roads. Let's do economic development that is economic development. There couldn't be a more perfect time than to bring up, let's talk about the hotel too. So what? You had an offer and you didn't take it. I can't control it. And by the way, the preacher did a good job today. It made me think of the Serenity Prayer. I've just never had the wisdom to know the difference, because anybody can change. And let's talk about the hotel real quick. You didn't take an offer. You didn't counteroffer it. You paid $554,000 to a consultant, and nobody lost a job. Nobody got fired. I mean, what a perfect town. You don't have to perform. You don't have to do well. But with this budget coming up, maybe everybody can go look at the AT&T building, go check it out, and see how the other half live. Think about it. I hate to take up your time because this is truly deaf ears, but a lot of the people out there, 1,111 of us, think completely different of how we should do things in this community. I do think the chickens have come home to roost. Now, the young kids won't know what that means, but Google it, look it up. But the chickens have come home to roost. Good luck. Thank you.
All right, that is everybody I have signed up for public comment. So with that, we will turn to announcements. City Clerk.
All right, nothing for me tonight. Just a reminder, we do not have a meeting next week, but otherwise I'll have something next time. Thanks.
City Manager.
Nothing tonight, sir. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to thank Pastor Durant for showing up and doing our invocation tonight. I have to admit, I haven't been to his church in a while. It's been a while. I have to make my way over there. But we do appreciate short notice, and he showed up. He does live in my district, so I'll be stopping by to ask if there are things you see that we're doing, things that you'd like to see us do, and appreciate you for tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Kell.
Had a great time this last Friday at the Be Mine Bingo at the zoo. Just remember, we have great events like that and how much it supports the animals there. I was able to become the 2026 wig snatching champion in a competition they had. They had some great prizes there that were able to meet the Tank the hippo, and had different paintings from a couple animals and painted tea sets. So there's always those little fun things in Topeka. Then you just need to get out and try to figure out what's going on out there and get involved, because a great cause like the zoo that helps out the animals get a little bit more. And you get to interact with the staff that way also, and you can bounce ideas off them to help them. I bounced a couple off on how to, in essence, let the animals almost make their own money by having their own Facebook pages and monetizing those, because that's a very simple, easy way just to keep up the appearances with the animals on social media, because there's other zoos that do it and do a great job at it, and they're able to let the animals kind of subsidize their own enrichment with that. So you want to take a look at my award there?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Bradbury.
I just want to say we had the opportunity to attend the fundraising dinner at TPAC over the weekend, this past weekend. And they did an amazing job. It was beautifully done. There were people at our table from Perry and Lawrence that attended. And I just thought it was, like I said, beautifully done. And I hope to see more of those fundraising opportunities, dinners from TPAC. So I just wanted to mention that.
Councilmember McGee.
I wanted to start by thanking the council for allowing me to delay swearing in by a week. That helped me a lot, and I appreciate that. I am going through the onboarding process now, and I will tell you, I've been very impressed with the staff. And, they do a lot of hard work. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Hiller.
Just wanted to shout out in memoriam, we lost Jesse Jackson today, and he's someone that contributed so much to us as a country being who we ought to be over many, many years. So he'll be missed, but his contributions will live on. Thank you. That's it.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say to David that Pastor Durant may live in your district, but his church is in my district. And he's a friend of mine. Good to see you, Pastor. I just had to rub that in. In love, Pastor.
I can walk out of my back door and go to his house.
Well, just a couple quick things. I do want to welcome you, Councilmember McGee. Welcome to the council. We're glad you're here. Glad to get the seat filled. You and I have a meeting coming up soon where I will dump a big pile of District 8 stuff in front of you and say, here, now you can handle those issues. So I feel good about that, if nothing else. But glad to have you on board, and especially as we head into budget discussions and all the other important things facing the city. I want to give a shout out to the Shawnee Heights wrestling team, whose every single member made the state tournament this past weekend. 14 of them, I think it was, so good for them. That's pretty impressive. Washburn Rural had a couple individuals who also qualified, and then Topeka High had Kaya Dawkins, I believe is her name, qualify as a freshman for the state tournament, so that's also pretty impressive. So it's wrestling season. We're in the throes of basketball season too, but it's also wrestling season, and so as someone who's got a friend who's a former Highland Park champion who's in their Hall of Fame. If I don't mention wrestling every once in a while, I'll hear it. So I want to make sure we give a shout out to the wrestlers of Topeka. So congratulations to all of them. With that, we have no executive sessions. Is that correct? So I believe that means we can end this meeting. So I will adjourn. Thank you, everybody.